Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Loading Screen. We're here with episode 2. My name is Aaron and I'm a hobby solo game dev. I've been game deving for about 4 years now. I have made one game on Steam called The Bridge, which is a Sokoban style puzzle game. And let's get into what we're going to talk about today. First, I found it but ironic that I really hadn't explained myself in the previous episodes like I just did. So there you go. As far as the talking points for today, we're going to talk about a little game called Banana. I'm going to share some stats about it, my experience and thoughts about it, and I want to incorporate a learning to help you demystify Steam transactions from a developer's perspective. After that, we'll talk a little bit about life updates, game dev, and game updates. Into Banana. So what is Banana? If you haven't heard, Banana is a idle clicker game. It's available on Steam. It's really easy. It's free. Simply download the game, click. The whole gimmick of the game is that you open it and you leave it open for a set amount of time and you get a drop or an item. And these items have a specific rarity. When I was playing it, it was that you get a common for every 3 hours and a rare or a more rare or not common, I'll say, every 18 hours. This has changed a little bit, which you can see the latest drop rates in the Steam page. But the reason I think this is interesting because I want to share some stats with you. So as of recording, which is 7/20/24, I want to share some stats. It's really just about the game, but also the things around the game that I think are very interesting. So for instance, the Discord community, when I joined, was around 7,000. And as of today, it's at 143,651, and I found that on the Discord using the mobile app. The Steam trading cards, like I said, the drop rates have changed over time. Currently, you get every 3 hours you get a drop, and the rarities on the Steam page if you want to know some details. Reviews. All time, according to Steam, it has 37,338, and recently it has 16,101. So that puts it in the mostly positive for recently. As far as how many of those are positive reviews versus negative reviews, according to SteamDB, 83.49% of them are positive. They have 31,143 positive according to SteamDB and 6,160 negative according to SteamDB. In terms of followers, they have just above 10,000 at 10,042 according to SteamDB. Also on SteamDB, you can see how many people are playing right now. The 24-hour peak is 469,318. It's the fourth most played game right now. The number one played game is CS2 or CS Counter-Strike. Then you have Dota 2, PUBG, Banana being fourth, and then Elden Ring, which is fifth. Then it has an all-time peak last month of 917,272 people. According to VG Insights, it's sold 3.4 million units. Its playtime, according to VG Insights, is that an average player plays for about 12.3 hours with a median of 1. And I don't know about you, but those are some crazy stats. If you told me this little idle game would get that many reviews, like people would kill for that amount of traction of reviews, play time, units sold, drops, that level of integration and that big of a community on Discord, like it is quite a feat and it's just very impressive overall. So I want to get into a little bit of a background that I have. I did some light research for just the stats I just shared. Banana is not the first game to have this concept. From what I've read, there is actually another game called Egg that does something very similar, except Egg has more of a cookie clicker vibe to it where you click and you get eggs, but as you click more, you get more eggs. The thing that makes Banana different is that it integrates drops. You can still do the whole idle clicker. The clicking doesn't really do anything. Unfortunately, I think that would be an interesting gimmick, but it could easily be exploited. Essentially, the drops are tied to your playtime. As far as other background, there was a little bit of a scandal, so to speak. There was one of the developers that was tied to some NFT stuff in the past, but they have resolved that by essentially breaking off and them going their separate ways so that this is not tied to that history. oddly enough, there was a memory leak issue with the game at one point, which I thought is really funny because it's a very simple game. But the developer said it was dependent on the number of bananas you had earned. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting. As far as my experience in Thoughts go, so I put in about 39.4 hours into it. I got my drops, got my bananas. They're currently in the marketplace. But I think the thing I want to talk about is why I think it blew up. So the first time I ever heard really about this game was actually in a Reddit post about someone accidentally buying a $25 banana. And that just blew up on Reddit. And I thought that was a really funny experience because you're like, who is buying a $25 banana? Like, what is this game? Where is a $25 banana even available to buy? The other thing I think is, so that alone I think really piqued my interest in the game. Another reason why I think it blew up is one, it's a simple game. There's a very small barrier to entry. It's free. You can go in and just start playing it and being able to do what the game is actually intending you to do, which is you play it, you open it, you get drops. I think there's another small side effect too of like it's seen as a quote unquote investment. Like you could earn money by basically doing nothing. So it has this sort of loophole feel to it. It also is also a meme. Like I knew that going into it it feels very memey in the sense that, I'm joining this thing and it just has this very funny kind of satirical aspect to it. But I think the real reason why I think it blew up is because of the community. And once people, learn about the drops, the drop rate, and you start collecting bananas, I got bananas. I wanted to see what other people got, and I wanted to share them because the whole intent is that you go and you try to sell them in the marketplace. And when you go to the marketplace, you realize there's all these other bananas here. And you're like, well, how do people get these bananas? So then that leads you to the Discord to figure out who else is, getting their drops, talking about trades and learn and just gets you invested to want to keep learning about it. So that introduces you to the community, and then you can see what everyone else is getting. And then that is just kind of this thing of it. There's this commonality in this sort of, you're in this community, in this circle of you're trying to solely accomplish this one thing, and that is to get bananas. And I think that is just a fun community. And it has a similar vibe to Helldivers, where instead of, in Helldivers' case, you're fighting for democracy. It's this unified effort towards this one goal. And I think Banana captures that essence of you're just trying to get bananas, and everyone is just trying to do the same thing. So you're doing it more together to see if you can actually accomplish to get the best bananas out of the game. I do have my concerns about it. First is who is buying this stuff? Because other than it being basically a cosmetic in the game, which is really what it is, it's similar to a trading card, I think. But it's really to just have it for the sake of having it. It serves no real purpose outside of Banana, other than when you sell it, you get credit to your Steam account, and you can use that to buy other games, or hey, you can do your banana scheme and just keep buying bananas with the money that you earned from previous banana sales and just keep going. I did notice that there is a lot of merchandise being available on the Discord to redirect you to actually buying merch. So things like shirts, and I think the shirts idea is quite fun, in the sense that it is the olive green or like a black shirt, and it has the picture of the man on it. But on it actually has the counter, which goes up, and your order number is going to be the number on the shirt as the counter, as if it was in the game, which I think is a fun idea. It does feel like it's a little bit too good to be true. It is a meme, I feel like, at its core, of you're just doing this thing to get bananas. Bananas serve no real purpose, and it unfortunately gives off a scam and like an NFT vibe to it. And so take that with a grain of salt, if you will. And those are just my thoughts about it from my perspective. But there is one thing that I wanted to take away from this game, and that's the Steam transactions. Because I don't think a lot of people know how the Steam transactions, I think, work from the developer's end. So I did some research. There is some stuff with Steamworks that I don't know a lot about in terms of what developers have agreed to with Steamworks. So I'm going to not talk about that end as far as the actual interaction with Steam. However, there is some things as far as fees go that are available to a consumer or a player or a buyer of items on Steam. So as far as like when you have an item on the community marketplace, so just say it's $10, there are fees that are already included in that. So one of the fees is there's a 5% Steam transaction fee, and there is also a minimum of 1 cent to that fee. And there's also a 10%, I'll say, game developer fee, and that is also a minimum of 1 cent. So meaning the lowest item in terms of value or cost you could put onto this community marketplace and be a valid Steam transaction is 3 cents, because 1 cent would go to you as the seller, 1 cent would go to the developer, 1 cent would go to Steam. So if you consider that and considering how many transactions Banana is going through, that's a lot of money. Because if we have going back to my example, if you have a $10 item, the game developer would get essentially $1 of that for just that transaction happening. And then Steam would also get 50 cents of that. And I also want to point out, Valve doesn't explicitly state that devs get 10%. I haven't found that documented anywhere. I found that mainly just doing research through the community and Reddit. And people have done, I'll call it like test transactions to see how much of the fee goes or is documented when in the receipt itself. And it seems like 10% is the value. This could be adjusted on Steam's backend. I don't have any really insight on that. However, I think there's an interesting case that Valve essentially double dips a lot on this, because if you think of Counter-Strike or Team Fortress, like they have items. So not only do they get the 5% Steam fee, essentially going back to them, but since they are the game developer of those games, they actually will get the 10% for that. So they actually get the whole 15%, which I think is quite interesting and another way I guess they can make money, and they are making money. And so if we think about going back to Banana, how many transactions are happening and how much the value of those are, this team of developers is making a healthy chunk of money just off of the transactions. And I don't have an exact number, but even if he did $100,000 worth of transactions, he'd get 10% of that, which is not insignificant at all. That's, $10,000 for basically quote unquote doing nothing. So that's a good thing for the dev to consider that, even if he may or may not have considered that. But it is, I think, not something you can ignore, that he is definitely making money. I keep saying he, the team that is definitely making money on these Steam transactions. And another thing is I want to just share as a learning that you really don't know what's going to blow up. It could be the simplest ideas or that one little mechanic that people love. And at its core, it's a simple game. It's just a simple idea that resonates with people and that anyone can do it. And I shared, why I think it blew up. But I think it's just something that resonates with people, and I don't think anyone knows what that thing actually is. But Banana has aspects and has bits and pieces of that. And from here on, I wish the dev all the best and what they are trying to accomplish with their game, Banana. So now, I guess I'll probably talk about a little bit of my life, personal side, wrist pain that I was talking about earlier. Taking medicine, doing stretches, icing it. It's been helping a lot. I have had a lot less stiffness in it and just be much more manageable and much more enjoyable to be at my computer. I've also just been setting a lot of this podcast infrastructure, finding a host for the podcast, setting it up, linking it everywhere I can, socials, websites, Discords, that sort of a thing. As far as games go, I haven't played many games this week. I did play a few hands of Bolitro to just take a break before I went and worked out and, before I went to bed, but nothing serious. I have thought about starting Tunic and hopping in between that and Crashlands. Crashlands definitely feels like a much more open-ended game. And I know there's a story there, and I know I talked a lot about it last week that I had about 6 hours into it. And it's really just boils down to time. I don't have that much time to be able to spend playing games when I do want to maybe work on this podcast a little more, do a little bit more research so it is a little bit more polished. Or I could be, making my own game. Or I could be, spending time with family, talking to family, maybe planning vacation. There's lots of other things that are fighting for my attention, so to speak. So I do want to continue to enjoy the games, but I also just don't have that much time. So games with smaller play times overall, as far as completion goes, I tend to favor because I can complete them in a short period of time and get the whole experience, so to speak. I think a short hike is a great example of that. As far as game dev goes, I don't know if I've explained how far I actually am into the development of it, but other than being at 4 months, like a lot of the game design, I don't want to say it's done, but I have a lot of the framework of it already complete. It just is not, the content of it is not actually in Godot, in the game itself, as far as putting the mechanics into it. It has the whole roguelike element. Like I can do a run in it from start to finish. So if you consider like Balatro, where you start by selecting a deck, which if you don't know what Balatro is, it's a roguelike deck builder game where you essentially play poker hands to get high score. And the whole idea is that you have chips and you have a mult. And the idea is that you have the chips and the mult, and they are multiplied together to get a score, and that score increases exponentially as you play. And you have these little things called jokers that can either help you get other cards. You also have consumable cards. Some of the joker cards can help you increase your score. And it's this whole thing. If you want to learn more, just look up Balatro. But the whole game loop that it has is that you play against a blind. You play poker hands. You win, assuming you win. Then you go to a shop, you buy better cards, and then you select a new blind and you repeat that. There is a smaller case that you skip a blind, which, is something that you can do in my game too. But overall, like that's the loop. And once you reach a certain amount of score or you reach a certain amount of level, like you win and that's it. And I have a shop. I have all of these aspects that is very similar to Balatro in a different flavor, I will say. But the bones are there, so to speak. And it just needing to feed the content part of it. And mind you, there's zero polish into it right now. And I think that's going to be a bulk of where I'm going to be spending a lot of time. Mechanically, I am getting more and more ideas the more I think about it. And ideas will pop into my head. Mechanics, I'm like, ooh, it'd be good to add this and whatnot. And I just want to make sure and be cognizant that I'm not adding more to the game that it doesn't need, and I'm not suffering from what they call scope creep, was I just exponentially or just keep adding stuff to the game because I think it needs it. However, I've learned that the game actually benefits from having less. It's the same concept of in a deck like Rogue Builder of thinning the deck, which if you don't know, is thinning the deck is essentially you're removing cards from your deck. And the reason that's important or even sought after is because it increases the predictability of the outcome that you have. So if you have a standard playing card deck, so you have 4 suits from ace to king, so you have 52 cards total, and you ask me what is the odds that I draw an ace? It'd be 4 and 52, so whatever those odds are. But say I have a deck with 4 aces and then, 8 other cards, and that's it. So you have a 12 card deck, so you have 4 aces and 8 other cards. Then what if I asked, what are the odds that you draw an ace? You would say, oh yeah, like a third of the time on average. And that predictability and that amount of control that you have is incredible. And it gives you a very good sense of power, which is, I think, something that Balatro does very well, is it does give you that control. And I was talking to a coworker about that, and he mentioned that the ability to control or have control in a random environment is a very crucial element in a roguelike, and Balatro is an exceptional example of that. I forgot where I was going with that, but anyway, I was talking about game design. So my game, is pretty far along. Art, I don't have. I have a few pieces of art here and there because I've been practicing from last week. I have around like 200 card ideas so far, maybe 3 of art. I have a couple like consumable cards that have art. There's no sound in the game. There's no particle effects. There's no really animations in it. It's all very static. there are a few bugs with it. Like, for instance, I just finished prototyping the tooltip for it, which a tooltip is, so in Balatro and in many other games, like strategy games have very good tooltips of you hover your mouse over an item or just an element in the game. I'm going to use Balatro just because that's what my game is similar to. It will tell you information about the card, the card's name, maybe a slight description, what stats or perks it has, the benefits it provides to you. Then, in a game like, I don't know, like Elden Ring or something, it might give you some lore or something in a tooltip or any other useful information that is relevant to you as the player. But anyway, so I just finished that. In my game, and I encountered a funny bug where you have the concept of a hand. So you just have, playing cards in your hand, and you hover over them. Yeah, it tells you the title of it. It tells you how many points it'll give you and things like that. But then since you are playing against another person, right now it's just an AI, that they also have a hand, which is also available for you to see, except the cards are not face up, they are face down, which obviously makes sense due to the random element that I have in the game. However, what I didn't anticipate, that when I actually hovered my mouse over their card, which is face down, the tooltip will still show up, and it will show up with all of the details of the card, because there is a certain amount of hidden information in the game. Obviously, this tooltip exploits that perfectly because, I can't prevent that, which is a funny thing to think about, because now the cards need to have a sense of ownership of, this is my card, so you're able to see it. However, when you go hover over another person's card or your opponent's card, those need to be not hidden, or they need to show up as, you can't see this information, or they just not show a tooltip at all, or it just shows like, this is a card and that's all you know about it. So it is an interesting bug I found that exploits the game for now. It's going to be fixed, but how I fix it, I think, is going to be interesting, because, I can either show that it is a card and it can be played. It doesn't show any details about it, or I just not show it at all. Which one is right or wrong, I don't know. I'll figure that out with time. And that's all I have for this episode. So thank you for listening. Feel free to join our email list to hear about our latest news, or if you want to hop into our Discord to meet some more gamers and game devs, or continue the conversation that we had, about Banana, about game dev, or maybe some games you're playing, let me know in the Discord. Also, feel free to check out A Bridge on Steam, which is the Sokoban puzzle game that I made. All the links to the email list, the Discord, A Bridge, are in the show notes. And with that, I'll see you in the next episode.